This is an example of a presentation that I give to professional associations or other groups, just as an introduction to what I do, and sometimes as a general interest sort of topic. As you're speaking, feel free to weave in stories and anecdotes of your own in terms of what you've found with your own clients. It can help your audience engage with the topic. I call the presentation Taming the Beast, Producing Conferences and Special Events That Won't Kill You. It's important, first of all, to understand what the objective is of your event and what's your vision, and actually to get consensus from everybody involved on that vision. The purpose and goals of the event, as well as who your audience is, what you're going to spend on it, and who is going to be responsible for what, including getting the logistics taken care of, contacting speakers or sponsors, managing promotions and outreach and registrations and other logistics like that. Different events can have different expectations. Yours might be celebratory in nature. It might be to raise the profile of the organization or showcase an organization as having a particular status. It might be just to have fun. Often fundraising events are very popular, and of course the element in there that's of importance is raising money for a nonprofit organization. On the other hand, we have expectations that are a little bit different for conferences. Conferences generally come with the expectation that attendees will have interaction with your conference sponsors. Attendees expect high-end content that helps them develop professionally often or otherwise. They expect to have the opportunity to network with other conference attendees and with the conference organizers sometimes and your sponsors. So understanding all of those elements when you're producing a conference can be very important. With any kind of event, you're going to have an element of risk. And that's because these are expensive undertakings and they're a big draw on the resources of the individuals involved and the organizations. It's a crowded market out there. There's something to do every day of the week in some communities, and you want to be aware of that. It's also, there's a high impact or potential for impact by local world happenings, natural disasters, and so forth. I once had an event scheduled for 9/11, for example, and so had to regroup pretty quickly on that. Why bother with special events? They can do a lot for an organization, from raising the visibility to recharging your volunteers and help introduce new folks to your mission and organization. They can also help establish your organization as a regional expert, and the additional element of fundraising is always important for some organizations engaging in special events. One way to reduce the risks involved in planning special events is to know the variables involved, including the particulars in your community, the types of events that folks like to attend. Know the volunteers who are going to be your biggest resource, and make sure they have a fairly clear understanding of what their jobs are going to be. Keep close tabs on all of the different aspects of your event and make sure that they understand that you are their point of contact, and run a tight ship. That's important in special events. When I'm organizing events, I take a look at the venue and the people who are going to play important roles, such as speakers and entertainers who need to be contracted right away. The venues in our community go quickly, months in advance, especially during high times like Christmas or the wedding season. You also want to take a look at when your sponsors want to hear from you, and often that is months in advance. And then when you're working with volunteers, they want to know in advance what you're going to expect of them. A little bit more on engaging sponsors. Take a look at what your event has to offer them from their perspective. Sponsors are interested in getting visibility with your audience. So identify those benefits that you think you might offer to a potential sponsor. And then look at contacts that are close to your organization, board members, folks who do business with your potential sponsors, customers of theirs that are engaged with the organization, and draw upon those connections so that you're not cold calling potential sponsors. Don't hesitate to call upon the existing pool of knowledge about your particular event. When you're planning a golf tournament, talk to people who have participated in golf tournaments before, what works well, what doesn't. Same with any kind of running event or riding event. Your speakers and your facilities, people have worked with them before. What was their experience? Ask others in your community for information, and you can help mitigate some of the risk factors for some of the events that you're going to be planning. When I'm working with nonprofit organizations, particularly, I look at ways to reduce the overall budget impact by talking to those closest to us about whether they might want to provide items or services that will reduce the cost to our event. I focus on the folks closest to us, not just those that can provide the item or service that we need. And I also try to be mindful of a lot of folks in different industries work on a very slim margin, and sometimes they get approached a lot about providing free services or items in exchange for a marketing opportunity. When I'm promoting an event, I like to focus on why should people attend. Is it because they particularly support our service or mission? Is it because there's a unique venue that they're going to get to see, or the people there are of interest to them? Enlist people to help you promote your event. Table captains and team captains bring entire groups of people. Enlist professionals to reach out to their professional and social circles. And look to earned media. Get your story in front of the papers with a particular angle that will be of interest to a larger audience. Then you get down to the little details. What kinds of audiovisual equipment are you going to need? What does your speaker need from you? How many people are going to be in the room, and how many bars will you need set up in order to serve those people? What color are your linens and your napkins? Who's going to design and print your programs and brochures and signs? How will you recognize your sponsors? Where will you hang the banners? What kinds of awards and certificates will you need to have on hand to recognize those involved with the event? Then you get down to the little tiny details. How will people experience the room when they walk into it? What will they hear? I once had a volunteer who said, I want to make sure that the bathrooms have little bowls of potpourri and cloth napkins instead of paper towels. Little details can make a big difference in how people experience your event. And if you're engaging with some artists to provide some music, be aware that you should budget for that. Arts groups are not dying for exposure, for free exposure at your event. Make sure that those in charge of the event have a list of key contacts. If someone isn't showing up or at their station, how can they be contacted? What's supposed to happen at particular times during the evening? Where are people supposed to be seated, or exhibitors supposed to be stationed? Set up a room map. Designate specific people for questions, and how will they be dressed and recognizable as folks who can troubleshoot for problems. There are things that people remember from an event. The good things include engaging presentations, comfortable situations where it's not too hot or cold. Sometimes good food is a memory maker. Engaging with people that they enjoy can also inspire good memories. Bad things, waiting is always at the top of the list, whether they're in a checkout line or a registration line. Uncomfortable or long silences, audiovisual equipment that doesn't work, really bad or difficult to eat food, long-winded speakers, and hidden expenses or charges they didn't anticipate. This is a point in the presentation where you ask if folks have ideas of their own or want to bounce an idea off of you. Sometimes people really would like to hear what other people have done and what has worked really well for them, or they might have a question for you about the work that you do. If I were you, I'd be prepared to have utter silence in a presentation at this point and be prepared to pose a question, hypothetical question, that you will then go ahead and answer and maybe inspire some ideas of other people in the audience. I'd end with information about how to contact you for more information. As a consultant, I always make time for people if they want to have a more in-depth conversation. It's part of my marketing strategy. I'll give anybody an hour of my time for free. And then hopefully, if they have something more involved, they'll think of you as a professional or recommend you to somebody else when the opportunity arises.